Welcome back to the 𝗀𝗚 Podcast, tzvi broker with Rav Gerzi. I'd like to welcome all of our listeners, including our Torah Anytime listeners around the world. So today's topic is one that I'm particularly excited about. We've just recently finished, Rav Gerzi, an 18-part workshop all about what it means to live as a Kiddush Hashem in the workplace today. And it's such an important topic for anyone who's working, especially if someone's a manager, managing a team, if we're interacting with non-Jews, or even if we're interacting with Jews. It's something which we need to keep in mind. And obviously we can't cover 18-part workshop in one talk, but we always do our best to at least scratch the surface and share this message with our wider audience. And, it's a funny thing because, this is what I said when we started out the workshop. It's like, stop someone on the street and be like, okay, I say Kiddush Hashem. What's the first thing that comes to mind for so many people? Kiddush Hashem at the workplace. Be honest, right? Don't steal, or don't get caught stealing, right? Or, don't look funny, right? That's what so many people think about. And the truth is that in the workshop we spoke about, perhaps an understanding of the historical context of where this came from. I don't know how it was like in England, but we were sharing in the 𝗀𝗑𝗵𝗺 memories of being on that school trip, when they finally took us out, of like the quarters of the classroom and the school fence, and that teacher gets up there on the bus and screams, "Listen up, everyone! Make sure
Kiddush Hashem.
You don't make a 𝗀𝗚liche Hashem. You have to make a Kiddush Hashem. Make sure don't throw things out the window. People, you're on display. People are going to be looking at you." And so much of that psyche has come into play when we think about these words about Kiddush Hashem and 𝗀𝗚liche Hashem. But the truth is that it's such a deeper topic than that. One of the 𝗪𝗀𝗪 that we spoke about, it's brought down by the Rambam. It's a Gemara, right, that speaks about Kiddush Hashem, right? So 𝗬𝗪abli when we're speaking about how a person makes a Kiddush Hashem. So the discussion over here is, how do people speak about this Yid? How do people speak about you? And the lashon over here, brios, right, as the 𝗀𝗀𝗕𝗏 as well, when he speaks about this lashon, right, of brios, of Aaron HaKohen, right, brios, speaking about different levels of human beings. We're not talking about tzaddikim, we're not talking about bnei Torah, we're talking about very simple people. How do people look at you? What do people say about you? So if we act in the right way, right, so the Gemara says, right, Ashrei Aviv 𝗀𝗪𝗪 Torah. So a person says, wow, look at this person, right? Fortunate, right, is the person who taught this person Torah. Ashrei Rabbo 𝗀𝗪𝗪 Torah. Who were these teachers that taught this person, right? Oilahem brios shelo lamdu Torah. Ploni limdu Torah. Ri'u kama noim derachav. Right, so when they see the way this person acts, they say, what a shame for those people who haven't had this education, that they haven't been on this program. Because this person, right, who's learned Torah, this person who's a religious Jew, wow, look how beautiful are his ways. Kama mitzukani ma'asav. Look how fixed, look how crystallized, right, and how developed this person's actions are. Alav akasuv, and upon this, it's written, right? Omer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Vayomer li'avdi ato Yisrael asher 𝗀𝗀 𝗪𝗀." HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you, right? You, my servant, the Jew. This is what it means that I'm proud of you. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "Wow, I'm proud of the way that you're acting." And what we spoke about in the 𝗀𝗑𝗵𝗺, and it's such an important thing for everyone, even if you've thought about this, just to hear it time and time again, right? Is that when we're speaking about being a Kiddush Hashem, right? We're speaking about being the type of person, right? Especially when we're talking about in the workplace, right? That creates that wow effect, right? There's that wow factor in everything that you do. That what you're doing when you're at your job, when you're interacting, when you're doing your sales, right? When you're having team meetings, whatever you're doing, you're able to do it. That people are like, wow, look at that guy. Like, look at that guy. This is somebody who I can really learn from. So the question is, it's a funny thing, because it's spoken about today, and this is really something that we focused with Rav Gerzi. We went through each one in the workshop, how you find that while we have lots of talent and people that are more educated perhaps ever when it comes to hard skills, that there is this lacking that HR and managers are talking about, which is that we're lacking these soft skills. And we kind of explored together, right, this correlation between what does it mean to be a Kiddush Hashem in the workplace, and what does it mean to be a person who's developed their core skills.
𝗀𝗪𝗧 Hashem. It reminds me, there's a beautiful Maimah Chazal, and it's really, sometimes people, it's a little bit confusing because on one hand, you open up the 𝗀𝗚𝗧, 1,000 years ago text, tells us that you shouldn't care what other people think. When it comes to keeping Torah mitzvahs, when it comes to keeping religion, you shouldn't care what people think. You should go and do it, even if people mock you or make fun of you. But then, on the other hand, you have this Rambam, and you have the Maimar Chazal in Gemara Yuma, Pei Vav, that speaks about how you want to be a being where somebody looks at you and says, 𝗀𝗛𝗏𝗧 Hashem 𝗀𝗚𝗧.
Right.
Whoa! That you want to be living a certain way where you are a presentation of Godlight. You are a presentation of divine intelligence. Where somebody turns around and sees you, and as you said, quite beautifully, gracefully, wow, like, who is that? Whoa! And so this Indian, this idea, this experience, this way of living of Kiddush Hashem is something ever so deep. It's interesting, the Vilna Gaon, just to speak about the other side, we have this reality called Chilul Hashem.
Right, exactly.
Chilul could translate as desecration. But if you look at the etymology, the Vilna Gaon writes, Chilul is Chalal. Chalal is void. And the Vilna Gaon explains this very profound idea that as we are living, we're taking up space. We're taking up space. And really, 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 the space that we create, the space that we take up, is meant to be expressing light. Expressing light. So we have a space, everything in reality takes up space, and everything in reality has, so to speak, a need. The table has a need. That we have a need, but like the table, so to speak, has a need that it wants us to use it. Table's a table. A chair, that the table has the chair has a want and need that we sit on it. Everything takes up space. The idea of halal, which is an etymology, it's the word connected to chilul, which is desecration, is void, a void space. The idea behind it is that everything is space, and the question is, what are we filling that space with? So my teachers would say, between us right now, there's a space. So in relationship, we have a choice. What are we going to put in this space? If you imagine a bubble, and it's an empty bubble, and we've just met. So the question is, what am I going to put into this space? Am I going to put into this space love, respect, consideration, goodness, kindness, compassion? What am I putting into this space? Because this space and the energy in this space is versatile. What comes in will come out. It's constantly oscillating and moving. So what I put into that space is what comes out on the other side, so to speak. So you can choose to put in God glow, healing, respect, love. You could put in all of these good values and traits. I could put in all of these good values and traits. And what's that going to be within our relationship? Hopefully a deep, good, intimate, healthy relationship. Halal is where I'm filling this void, or a person's filling this void with toxicity, with, unhealthy, negative, dark behaviors. So you have this idea of halal, void of light, because every space, we are here to fill the world with light. Kiddush Hashem is that we want to be beacons of hope. We want to be beacons of goodness. We want to be bringing good, healthy, wonderful, wondrous, loving values to this world through us. We are the halal. Imagine that there is this physical side, which we don't have to imagine, there's this physical side, but this physical side contains a spiritual space as well. We want to fill this space of self with good values and good beliefs, and anything and everything we interact with, it's just making this world more beautiful, more precious, more special. And just imagine a world where everybody worked on being a Kiddush Hashem. Jew, non-Jew, everyone worked on being a Kiddush Hashem. The world would be a completely different place.
Right.
The world would be a completely different space.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I mean, I think that's really what's being caught onto today. They don't have a language as Kiddush Hashem, or in terms of what's being spoken about in the workplace, but this recognition of the fact that, when we're trying to train people to become effective, we can train people with hard skills and give them, they know how to program, they know how to use project management software, they know how to fix things, but there's something underneath.
Correct.
Right, which are these core skills, which are a person's it's a behavior and a mindset which really empowers the whole.
Are they nice or not? Are they nice?
Yeah.
Are you a nice person? Are you a good person? So the idea of Kiddush Hashem, which Kiddush is a hard word to translate. Let's translate it as a relationship with divine intelligence. I am in relationship with divine intelligence, Kiddush Hashem. 𝗀𝗘𝗧 Hashem is that I take up space, and that space is being filled up with bad, horrible 𝗀𝗨𝗧, bad values, and I'm hurting people. That we don't want that. We want goodness and kindness. Right. So it's interesting because in the world of personal growth in 𝗀𝗧 in Judaism, we have a world called Musa. Musa is the world of, so to speak, deep personal growth in Judaism. I remember speaking to one of my teachers who he heard from his teacher, who heard from his teacher, going back to the founder of the Musa world, Rabbi Yisrael Salant. This teacher's name was Rabbi Yitzchak Gurudzinski. He died a couple of years ago. And I remember he said, one Erev Rosh Hashanah, getting close to the beginning of the new year, he said, there are 3 dimensions that we want to be conscious of as a human being. And note that we're always oscillating between these 3 different dimensions. So you have the world of 𝗶𝘀. Everybody has an animalistic side to them. Every single person. It's called the world of the 𝗶𝘀. And every single human being on the planet experiences this. It's part of life, and we respect it. We give it its right space to exist. We give it its right expression in the right place, in the right way, with the right people, if needs be. So there's this element of what's called a 𝗶𝘀. But then you've got the next level, which is called a human being. What's a human being? A decent, healthy, functioning human being. And then you have a higher level, which is what we call being an expression of divine consciousness, 𝗀𝗡𝗀𝗧 or 𝗏𝑠 𝗀𝗡𝗀𝗧. So you have a woman or man, and they can work on themselves to an extent where they are bringing down upon them this higher state of conscious being. What is that experientially? What is the 𝗶𝘀 experientially, the animal self? What is the Adam, the animal self? What is the 𝗀 or 𝗏𝑠, the animal, this higher conscious being? So experientially it works like this. The 𝗶𝘀, the animal part of us, there's what we call a ሂסይרሩስ and a ዳחב, stimulus and a response. There's a trigger and a reaction. So the animal side of us works very simply. I see something, I'm triggered, I'm stimulated, bang, I jump on it. There's a reaction, stimulus and response. There's nothing in between, it just is. The stimulus and response, the trigger and reaction are touching each other. So I see food, I'm hungry, bang, I don't think about it, I just jump on it. That's the world of the animal self. So a person triggers you, bang, you jump on them. How dare you speak to me like this? The boss comes and tells you you didn't get the work in on time. You can say, you don't know what's going on in my life. So there's a ሂסይרሩስ and a ዳחב, a trigger and a response, a stimulation and a reaction. That's the animal self. What is the self which we call the human being? The human being, again, everyone can achieve this on their own level. The human being, the Adam, the Bnei Adam, is where there's a gap between the stimulus and response. There's a gap between the trigger and reaction. So I can work on myself, and this is really what we're speaking about, the idea of developing this soft skill of being a normal, healthy human being, and then bringing that wherever we go. We don't want the 𝗶𝘀 always jumping on us, right. The animal self always jumping. The human being is where I can stop for a moment. Okay, I may be hungry, but I've just had 3 pieces of, pizza or the 8 cakes, and I'm trying to change my body shape from round to square. I mean, round may be a nice, my nice shape, but I'm working on something. I may be, for example, working on being calm. So I feel inside of me a feeling of annoyance, but I take a breath. So there can be a gap between the stimulus and response, the trigger and reaction. That's Adam. That's Adam. That's a human being. And we can put in, for example, the sociological norms in that space. We can ask, how do I want to relate to this situation? So I learned in my coaching course to take a breath. I learned in my, anger management. I don't know why you would want to manage your anger, but anger management is walk outside, whatever it may be. So I can take what I've learned, mindfulness, and I could drop it into that space in the world of the human being, Adam. There is another level, and that's called the 𝗀𝗨𝗪. So for non-Jews, it's keeping the 7 𝗀𝗚liche laws, which break up into many different laws. And then for the Jews, we have the 613 mitzvahs. Really, it's not because of the destruction of the temple, it's far less, but we drop in Torah consciousness. We drop in divine consciousness. So for example, there's a stimulus. So I can sociologically react to the situation. Society tells me to do this. Or I can drop into that space. What does divine intelligence tells me to do? What does divine intelligence wants me to do? What's the law? What's the halacha? So you have these different stages, and really it's our life work. And we're always oscillating. Sometimes, yes, we're the animal. We follow the animal instincts. Sometimes we're just a human being, which is just, but it's absolutely amazing to be that. The world of mindfulness, I can be mindful. And then we want to develop to be this divine being. And, there is this disconnect at work. You can have all of these hard skills, amazing at mathematics, amazing at this, amazing at that. But if this side of personal growth, this side of filling the space within and filling the place around me with good boundaries and confidence, empowerment, compassion, then there's people won't want to be next to you. Not you, but people will. Someone's horrible. They're horrible. They may be very smart.
Right.
We want to be nice. We want to be nice, good, healthy human beings, knowing to hold proper boundaries, knowing to be sensitive to our environment in order to make, again, this world a more beautiful, wonderful, wondrous place.
Right.
So, okay, what do you have to say on that?
I think that it's a beautiful model. I know that, Rebbe's spoken about it, many in contexts in different chaburas and shiurim. And for many of our listeners, this might be the first time hearing this. And if it is, it's really something to think about, because I think for so many people, if you ask them, we strive to become a Ben Torah, we strive to become a Bas Torah, and within this model that Rebbe shared, we understand that there's a level of the Behema, but then in between there's this level of Ben Adam, which we're striving to get to as well, and then on top of being a Ben Adam, that's where we build Ben Torah. And I think what you described as being, a healthy, normal human being, that's a lot of what being recognized that's lacking really in the workplace today, and the result of that is creating that 𝗀𝗪 Hashem where people are not acting in that way. And something which we find is that if we're on the path of living a divine-driven life in which we're striving to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we're doing it right, so then we're becoming a Ben Adam along the path. 𝗀𝗪𝗀𝗪, and therefore we're developing ourselves, and then the Torah that we learn is able to deepen who we are and take us to a greater level. But it's so essential to have these core skills down, and it's really something, this is what we spoke about in the workshop, like if you're on the program and with Hashem's help, you're doing things the way that we're meant to be doing them, living a Torah life, we should be totally rocking it when it comes to all these core skills. Yes. Each one of the core skills that we spoke about, this is something which we're not just doing because it's a strategy. This is something of who we are, and one of the core skills that, we'll speak a little bit about today, and it's a big topic, but, by some it's been coined the king of all core skills, is the core skill of being, I love when they call it being growth-oriented. Isn't it great? And being a growth-oriented person. And we speak about that, being growth-oriented. And what's spoken about in the workplace, what is this core skills? Really, there's two components to it. One is connected more to resilience. We're not going to failure. We're not going to talk about that today. But the idea is that you're the type of person who's looking for opportunities to advance and grow and learn something new. So therefore, when the manager says, okay, here's a new project, we need to learn this skill, you're going to have people that are just like, trying to hide and trying to avoid it, just trying to take the easy way out. And then you have people that are like, yeah, let's learn something new. Let's grow. They look at challenges as opportunities to be able to learn, to be able to come better, to be able to sharpen one's saw. And what we spoke about is that from the Torah perspective, we have this amazing Maramakom. When I saw this Maramakom the first time.
In the Rambam.
Which one of the Rambam?
This one?
No, not that Maramakom also. We're talking about the Gemara in Brachos Lamed Beis that we've spoken about a lot.
The 4 things that you have to
Yeah, it's like you see it and you're like, really? Rashi? It's the Gemara in Lamed Beis in Brachos speaks about 4 things that require to have constant chizuk. Right? Constant chizuk.
You have to constantly be working on it.
Constantly working on it. Right? So there's Torah. Okay, that's good.
Number 1.
Right? Number 1. Right? There's tefillah.
Number 2.
Got it. Right? There's gemilas chasadim. We got it.
Loving kindness.
We don't just learn. We have to keep on learning. Right? We don't just daven. We have to keep on developing our level of tefillah. We don't just do chesed. We have to keep on fine tuning what we're doing. And then the fourth one is derech eretz, which Rashi explains what's going on over here. Rashi says it's a person in their profession. That whatever a person's profession is, a person needs to constantly be upping their game. It's a maramakum for professional development. Mamish.
It's a very, very deep point. It's a very, very, very deep point.
Yes, it's a very deep point. I also you think about the context, like the big 4, and you're like, wait a second, this is just some good advice Rashi is giving so you don't get fired. Is this the Gemara's, or is there something deeper? And it's one of those maramakomas when you learn the sukkah of work, as we've done here in the base of Medrash, you're like, wait, there's something else deeper which is going on. The question is why? Meaning, if work is just about getting the qualification, so you get the job, so you pull home the paycheck and pay the bills and do good things with that money. You send your kids to yeshiva and you buy your muhuder esrog, and you give your tzedakah and your meiser. Okay. So you did it. So you studied 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 8 years. Finally, I got my qualification. Perhaps now I'm in my position. Okay, finally, 𝗀𝗀𝗵𝗺 𝗀𝗪𝗏, right? La'avdil. Okay, I can now take it easy. But no, we have to now work and we have to keep on pushing ourselves and learn things. Like, why does the Torah care about this? Is this the Torah value that it ends up in the big 4? Torah, gemilas chasadim, tefillah, and work.
Yeah. It's interesting. First of all, I love the page number of the Gemara. I remember it. Gemara Brachot, lev, heart. It's something internal. It's something internal. Torah, avodah, gemilut, chasadim is in 𝗀𝗀𝗵𝗺 kavod, and then the Gemara brings work. But it's part, because first of all, some of the commentaries they explain the majority of people express themselves through work. Yes, we all have to pray. Yes, we all have to learn. And yes, we all have to involve ourselves in chesed. However, majority of people, they express themselves as well through work. This is something very important to think about. And your expression of your soul self, your deeper self, the inner essence of who you are through work is a magnificent expression of God glow reality, of divine light, of consciousness. And it's something that constantly needs to be worked on. And the other space is when you think about Torah. Everyone learns the same Torah. That is, Hashem gave us a Torah, and we all have the same Torah, so to speak. Okay? You move into tefillah, we all have the same world of tefillah. Now, if you look at Torah puts us as a nation on the same page. Everyone keeps the same mitzvahs. We move into tefillah, we all say the same tefillah, but already our emotional response to those tefillahs, we all have slightly different wants and needs. Chesed is more expansive as an individual. Chesed as an individual, so you go from nation into individuality, into further individuality, and a workspace on a certain respect. You get it right. You do it in the right way. The deepest expression of you can be found in what we call the workspace, which is very interesting. The other nakuda is that of giving, being a being of giving. And really, that's how we become the most similar to divine intelligence. Divine intelligence, God, Hashem, the cause of all causes, is constantly giving to us. We are told we need to be similar to Hashem. So where do we find that? We find it in all of these worlds, the world of Torah, the world of tefillah, the world of loving kindness, and in the world of work, on a certain respect, we can find the greatest platform to be able to be of service.
Yeah,
to be able to be of service, which makes us similar to Hashem. But again, we need to have those core skills. You have to have you have to have you that presents yourself. It needs to be enclosed in loving kindness. It needs to be enclosed in davening. It needs to be enclosed in Torah, that you are a nice, healthy person. And to have that soft skill with all the hard skills. And when you have that, wow.
Yeah, it definitely creates that. It creates that. Wow. I was just thinking, just to wrap up, Rebbe spoke about the translation for Kiddush, of what that is, the Kiddush Hashem. I think the word you mentioned was relationship. And, that really coins it up, and we spoke about it in the base medrash, a lot, is that, there's an amazing Makom from 𝗬𝗏s Reb Nassan, right, that speaks about the fact that just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah bebris, right, he also gave work bebris.
Yeah, gave work bebris.
Right? And what that means, bebris, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he gifted work to us from in a way of relationship. And Hashem said, listen, Chevra, I'm giving you this gift of malacha, and I trust you're going to do with it in an amazing way. And when we understand work in that way, right, in the way that Rebbe just shared, about that it's part of our expression, so we can understand why the Gemara in Brachos is saying, yes, you need to constantly develop yourself. You need to be a growth-oriented person in your career, not just in your Torah, not just in your tefillah, not just in your 𝗀𝗧 𝗧his, but yes, in being an accountant, right? And yes, in being a financial analyst, right? And yes, in being someone in logistics, and this one in being a painter, right? This one being a coach, right? And this one, being a lawyer, whatever it is, to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has put into my hands an opportunity, and He's entrusted it to me. And therefore, yes, we need to be growth-oriented, but not growth-oriented because the studies tell us if we're growth-oriented, then we'll get hired, right? It's a strategy. We're growth-oriented because being growth-oriented, not just in Torah, but also in our work, is part of what it means to be a Yid. And when we understand that and we live that way, so then we're able to, coming full circle like we started with today, what does it mean to be a Kiddush Hashem in the workplace? Yes, honesty, of course, we need to be honest. And we spoke about that as well, accountability, honesty, of course. But to be able to create that wow factor, that when people look at us and they're like,
this is
look
a real
at the whole
person.
office, who's the guy who's the most oriented guy?
Yeah, who's the lady, the man, who is that person? And you work, you develop, you bring a light to the space that you are in. You bring a light, a shefa, you bring something. You bring a warmth, you bring something to the space that you are in. Yeah. It's an amazing reality.
It's an amazing opportunity, and when we look at that way, it can totally change our every person's mindset when you step into the office, and recognizing that not just by 𝗀 meirah, but through 𝗀𝗀 tov, we have the opportunity to bring a Kiddush Hashem. So just one walk away from today's podcast, just for each one of us to think and be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. In my job, how much am I bringing that wow factor? And if I were to say, how are my employees looking at me? My employees, my managers, right? Not just on the annual reviews, not just, when I make sure to impress them, but really, how much do I feel that I'm bringing that impact, that other people are looking at me,
inspired,
right, and saying, inspired, work inspired, right?
They're moved, they're impacted.
I think that's the name of our podcast. Yeah. Work inspired. Right? To be work inspired, that's what it's all about. We should all have a bracha. This is Hashem, that we should, each one of us in our own way, to bring a Kiddush Hashem and to inspire people.
Amen. Bracha, mazel, and 𝗀𝗧his to all of us, Amen.